Let me just introduce you, or actually, let's have you introduce yourself, because you're my first guest on my podcast, Denny.
No way. I'm so honored. It's a huge, huge honor. No pressure.
No pressure. Well, I had a podcast before, and it was women's stories of pain and healing, and it was beautiful, and I loved it. And I felt a lot of pressure, and I felt all this, I don't know, well, pressure, for lack of a better word, to act right and say the right things. And
yeah, that never works that way, does it?
Oh, and then I went back and I spent all these hours editing, and and then as we went on and had more episodes, we ended up having like 13 episodes. By the time I was on episode 13, I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's much better to just say what you want to say and, say what you're guided to say, do what you're guided to do.
Exactly.
That's what I'm going to do. But this podcast is called Brain Changer. And it is about the marriage of science and spirituality.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
Oh, it is going to be so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you wouldn't mind, would you introduce yourself? And then I would love to have your background and how you became a transcendental meditation teacher.
Sure. Very happy to start anytime.
Yes, go for it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Denny Goodman. I'm a certified TM instructor. Teaching out of Santa Monica, California is my home base, but I travel quite a lot and teach. Very, very honored to teach around other places. And how I became a TM teacher was when I first started, when I was in the University of Oregon, and I was going to school, and my brothers and my sister all had learned before me. I'm the youngest of four, grew up in a little mountain town in Idaho, and then they said, you've got to do this most amazing technique. And so I had to wait many years before I was eligible to go to some place where they were actually teaching TM. And I learned, and the lights came on instantly. It was like 46 years ago. And I went back east to become a TM teacher, travel around the world on that extensive teacher training course. And then I've just been doing it since. It's been the most fascinating time. It keeps getting better. I love paying it forward. I love what it does for me personally and for all the people that we teach. There's 10 million people estimated that have learned TM worldwide since it came out. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi brought this out in the Himalayas in India, late 1950s, 1959. And they started traveling around the world. And he realized that he wasn't, it would take so many hundreds of years for him just to teach all the people he really wanted to. So he started making teachers. So I was one of the very gracious, fun way of becoming a teacher. And I just have been doing it since. I ended up in Santa Monica because it's like a dream come true. I've always loved Southern California, and the weather's really nice, and the people are eclectic and very inspiring. And so it's very easy. We're teaching record numbers. So I really landed well here. I was teaching Beverly Hills before that. Before that, when I taught you, Summer, I was in Idaho.
Yes.
I grew up in Idaho, and you and some people invited me to your home very graciously. That was like how many years? 10, 12 years?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I used to travel around all over the Northwest teaching. But before that, I was all around the world. I was traveling a lot. I was doing certain courses and doing everything I could for the TM organization. So to fast forward, I'm here in Santa Monica. Very, very happy to be here. Teach with the wonderful lady, Emily Fitz-Randolph, and we're the two co-directors here at her center.
Beautiful. Thank you, Denny. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me. I appreciate it. And I think especially now it's going to be so poignant. This is such a perfect time. In fact, we had planned on doing it a few weeks ago, but I think the stars aligned in the way that they often do.
Yeah.
And I really feel that now might be even more poignant and more impactful.
Yeah. What I've seen just teaching over the many years is that especially now, people need a huge relief from the pressures and the possible dangers of what's happening, and obviously what's taken on a major toll worldwide. And but TM does it over many hundreds of scientific studies done, not just science, but shows exactly what it does for the heart, the mind, the body, physiologically, mentally, emotionally, and the deepest level of the source of your pure consciousness. And with the innocent, effortless technique, practice 15, 20 minutes twice a day. It's very different than other techniques, and it's a simple, effortless technique. There's no concentration, no contemplation, definitely not difficult at all, and letting the technique work for you. And the magic is it's just letting the nature of the mind and body do what they've been designed to do. And it's a learning curve for a lot to let some technique work for you instead of you having to work for it. That's a very different change. So the thoughts, absolutely no problem. And the mind becomes naturally more expanded because you have a lot less stress mentally, and physiology becomes much healthier because stress is number one killer in our world. And the unfortunate coronavirus that is going on right now is adding on a huge amounts of stress with people. So what I see when we're still teaching as often as much as we can to help alleviate the stress and to help prevent, unfortunate circumstances with the virus taking its toll. So hundreds of scientific studies shown that TM is very, very effective in lowering blood pressure for high blood pressure people, intelligence growth rates, very specific things like galvanic skin response. It's a measurement of how much stress a person has, and just lowering the stress in every level of life. And we use a little analogy. You water the root of a plant, the whole plant gets nourished. You tap in the finest level of your source of pure consciousness, which could be in this case in our talk is pure spirituality. And then everything starts to grow. If there's stress there, it shuts that down. So letting the mind and body go where they want to go effortlessly in a very precise manner. This technique is taught for over 5,000 years. And letting it, let the mind and body heal themselves. Because a beautiful quiet place is the source, the merging of the mind and body, and the world around us too. Every thought we think creates some effect, direct effect on the nervous system. So if the healthier thought that we have, less stress, more expanded, clear thinking we have, then everything else in life is going to be so much easier, more fruitful, we could say. The body is just going along for the ride. It gets much deeper rest than sleep, dissolves deep-rooted stresses, and with less stress, the immune system becomes much stronger, so much needed right now for coronavirus time especially. So it opens up the door to something very, very promising for not just preventing, but hopefully alleviating the virus that's taking its toll. So I'm very passionate about what I do because I see this every day. I've taught so many veterans, warriors coming back from the wars, and people with all walks of life having PTSD. And this just adds a toll to that too. So we're still teaching TM every day in all of our centers, most centers around the country and the world. But it's more a one-on-one thing with keeping the social distance coded down and preventing any possibility of what we can do with our centers. So we're taking all of our healthcare measures here at our centers. So we're still very much open to teaching everybody that would like to learn.
So when you talk about, let's rewind a little bit, because when you talk about accessing your deepest consciousness or the deepest part of your being, right? So
Yes.
Tell me about that, how TM gets there, how Transcendental Meditation gets there. How is that different from typical meditation where maybe you're just focusing on your breathing? And what is that, right? Like, is that a part of your brain? Is that your limbic system? Is that, like, what is that?
It starts in the prefrontal cortex, to be anatomically correct. It's in the forehead where everything originates from there. There's different brainwave activity, alpha, beta, theta, delta, gamma waves, very, very specific effects with the brain in different brainwave activity. But we find that very soon after we practice TM, just closing the eyes and letting technique work for you, very quickly something called alpha 1 waves start enlivening the prefrontal cortex. It's indicative of higher states of consciousness. And everything revolves around the coherence of our brain. The body follows the mind. So very quickly, the brain becomes more coherent, what we call global brainwave coherence. Not just the prefrontal cortex, but the left and right hemisphere of the brain, occipital lobe, every part becomes so much more enlivened. And hypothalamus and everything that revolves around our thinking affects directly on our feeling, physically, mentally, and emotionally, obviously. So when the mind becomes more coherent, then body naturally becomes more coherent. We use a lot of physics principles with TM, and one is my favorite, is that it's the third law of thermodynamics. Anywhere in nature, without exception, when something becomes less and less active, it naturally becomes more coherent. It becomes more active, more chaotic, more entropic, more crazy. So on a very large scale, what's happening so many, many, many years is the world becomes more active, more entropic, more wild, and sets up for more stress in the world. So it's like nature's way of saying that we need to slow down and take more time to ourselves, becoming more settled. And then that third law of thermodynamics is more enlivened, so that not just our nervous systems become more refined, but the society as a whole. So it can take a very large sociological scale too. Because the world is as we are, how we're treating ourselves, especially subtle levels, which are more powerful than the superficial level of anything we do in life, then it's an innocent reflection of the world around us. More coherent, less stressed we are, more tapping into that beautiful coherence and the contentment within ourselves, which it's all there within everyone, then that starts to reverberate everywhere in the world. And the world's much, much healthier place from that too. So we can reverse the unfortunate trends of what's going on in the world now by simply letting the mind settle down with this technique. Very, very powerful settling down very quickly. Body gets much deeper rest and sleep. Now the deep rest dissolves stress. So it's just a natural byproduct. Our heart opens up more, less cardiovascular disease, number one killer in our country. So all these prevention measures that we do, it's already built in our system, the nervous system, in every level, parasympathetic nervous system, autonomic nervous system. Everything is already very, very, very profoundly designed. Now we're just using much more of that to protect ourselves.
So when we take some brainwave measurements, when we're doing transcendental meditation, we see a lot of alpha waves, and that is in our prefrontal cortex. So
alpha waves, to be specific, it's more refined level than just alpha waves, yes.
Okay, alpha, say it again.
Alpha 1 waves.
Alpha, got it.
More refined.
So, but when we talk about consciousness, where do you think that comes from?
The source of everyone. There's nowhere that consciousness is not. There's different levels of consciousness. There's waking, sleeping, dreaming states that we're, I'm sure, very well aware of. They have their own corresponding state of physiology. And when you're awake, and brainwave activity is very different, chemical, metabolic rate, very different than when you're deep asleep, hopefully deep asleep at nighttime, and very different when you're dreaming. So very easily to map out those three different distinct states of consciousness. Now, very quickly with transcendental meditation, we tap into effortlessly a fourth state of consciousness, what we accurately call restful alertness, where the body's much deeper rest and sleep, but the mind can be more awake. Alpha 1 waves are more aware of pure awareness itself. And the quiet contentment, the coherence, less stress, the body's much deeper rested. Now you come back out in the world. That pure consciousness stays with you for a little while. Sometimes it fades away. So that's why TM's practiced twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. And then you get tired in the afternoon. This is the perfect time to reboot. So now you tap into your already beautiful pure consciousness level effortlessly, fourth state of consciousness, which underlies the other three states. Another name for this is called transcendental consciousness. Transcendental, again, means to go beyond. So we go beyond waking, sleeping, dreaming states. Now it enlivens everything we do in the waking state, much more alert, more clear, less stress, more energy. Sleep is going to be much better, as we find scientifically, and dreaming very colorful and very active and releasing even more stress that way too. So again, it comes back to you water the root of a plant, the whole plant gets nourished. You tap into a level of pure consciousness, then it wakens up all the other three states.
And then when we walk around in that transcendental consciousness, then we're able to receive inspiration more clearly, or understand what's going on more clearly, make more enlightened decisions about our lives, etc.
Very much.
I was just listening to Deepak Chopra today, and he was talking about this. He was talking about, you know, your brain is in, it's never a peace of mind, right? That doesn't really exist. except for when we allow ourselves to be silent. So except for when we allow ourselves to be in a meditative state. And that is when we can actually heal our body, because our mind isn't constantly in basically at war with itself. So is that what you're saying, that by getting into this transcendental consciousness, or even when we're meditating, but then by bringing it outside of that, that we're being
Yeah,
able to heal the body even more effortlessly?
exactly. Some of that stays with you, some fades away. Every day it accumulates a little bit longer, stays with you longer, some fades away, back and forth. But we use the analogy of an ocean. The mind can be very much like the ocean. You look out and seemingly unfathomable amount of water. This seems to go forever. The human brain is pure potential, is very much like the ocean. And sometimes the ocean has a lot of waves, very, very active hurricane waves, just too many waves sometimes on the ocean. The brain, human brain, has very, very active mind, nonstop. Again, alpha, beta, theta, delta, gamma waves. The brain is designed to think so many thousands and thousands of thoughts every day because it's to solve problems, to create more adventures, to fulfill desires. The brain's designed to think all those thoughts. Just like the ocean is designed to have a lot of waves at times. Now, there's some very quiet place deep within the ocean. If anyone has ever dived in the ocean, we don't try to stop the ocean from having waves. You cannot do that physically. But you can dive underneath it, and it starts to get very quiet, very calm, very quickly. And then go to the depth of the ocean, complete calmness, complete quiet. In the same ocean, the hurricane waves are still on the surface. Same thing with the mind. Thinking, having to do, create, solve problems, everything's going on every day. Now the mind is effortlessly allowing itself to transcend. It's called automatic self-transcending with this technique of TM. And the mind doesn't deal with on the superficial level. We transcend that and allowing the mind to go to a beautiful, quiet place of contentment, inner quiet. Health means wholeness. So that's at the source of your pure consciousness, your thoughts, your creativity, your intelligence. And now when you come back out, your creativity, your intelligence, your energy is flowing much more freely because you have a lot less resistance. The only things resisting from keeping our pure consciousness state 24 hours a day, every day, is stress. How we got there, we really don't care. But the body is designed through very deep rest to just dissolve stress. Stress is foreign to the system. The mind wants to be coherent. That naturally happens when the mind becomes less active. Everything starts to just reverberate around how you are feeling at that very deep, beautiful, quiet place. But then you bring that meditative state out into the world, into waking, sleeping, dreaming states. So fast forward, there's all the time, so it never leaves you. You can have that in a very busy, everyday, active life, that stabilized cosmic consciousness.
That's fantastic. So do you find, okay, I have so many questions. First of all, even though we've discussed this, I bet people are asking, because I know that people have asked me, why is it effortless and how is it effortless? Because I have so many people talk about, I can't meditate, it's too hard, I can't calm down my brain. My monkey brain is always talking to me. In fact, it's like a drunk monkey talking to me and distracting me. And I can't focus, and it's too hard, and I can't sit still. I can't control my thoughts. So what would you say about that and about what it means to have an effortless technique?
Everywhere in nature, in countless numbers of indications of nature as being effortless. Pure nature is effortless. You don't have to push the river to flow the ocean. It naturally flows effortlessly in nature. We naturally wake up in the morning, and then at nighttime we naturally fall asleep, naturally slip into a dreaming state. All those different states of consciousness are effortlessly flowing one into the other. Effortlessly tapping into fourth consciousness like any other state of consciousness. So we allow the mind to go there. Try to stop the mind from thinking. You're actually creating stress because we can't. The mind's designed to think all this many, many, many thousands of thoughts every day.
Yes.
So if you go get your nature, it actually creates the stress. It's like putting a dam up in the river. It's not flowing freely anymore. Very simple physics. If you want your mind to be free, let it free. We don't constrict, control, concentrate, focus on anything with this technique because that actually is slowing down the flow of nature. So it's a beautiful old saying. Control is the opposition of evolution. we control nature with slowing it down, if not shutting it down. That's
Mm.
what stress does. So we're allowing the mind to be free because it's always looking for that source. It's not, if the mind is tending to wander, trying to stop the monkey mind from wandering, you're stopping it from going where it really wants to go. Mind's already looking for enlightenment. Very different concepts, technique, results with TM, with other techniques. The others are called focused attention, concentration, like you mentioned before. It's restricting the flow of energy and not allowing your mind to go to that beautiful, quiet, contented place because you're keeping it at a very superficial level. It's like treading water on the surface of the ocean.
Yeah.
There's something called open monitoring also. There's more of a contemplation technique where you're trying to be in the moment and like hone in on your breath and or whatever, is just to being simple in the moment. And that's nice, very nice. It creates more theta waves. Just being more present in the moment, but it's not actually allowing the mind to transcend to these finer levels deep within your pure consciousness. And science has been showing that quite clearly too. So TM is very unique because it ironically allows nature to do the work for you. I use this analogy, not that people are flying in airplanes these days, but if you were to hop in an airplane and you buckle up and let the pilot fly the plane, there's no work to get to wherever you want to go on the planet. The pilot's going to fly the plane. This technique is very much like the pilot. It's allowing the mind to go exactly where it's always wanting to go because it's wandering. It's not wandering, it's in search for that beautiful, quiet place. So if we stop that from flowing, you're not allowing the mind to go to its already enlightened, beautiful place. Just like putting your foot on the brake. You're trying to get in the cockpit of a plane and trying to take over the controls. First, you don't have to. It's a lot of work. Secondly, you may not take off the ground. So it's very, very unique, and we allow nature to do the work for us. It's a very precise ancient technique at the same time.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that your mind is already looking for enlightenment. I did a live similar in the same subject matter on that today, just talking about how when we don't allow ourselves to feel emotions and move through, and we go straight to positivity or positive thinking, then we're sort of spiritual bypassing. We're not allowing ourselves to really get there and allow ourselves to find the wisdom that obtain from the emotions that we have.
Right.
So how do we access that? How do we tap into the flow? How do we take our oars out of the water and allow our mind to find enlightenment?
It's again with the technique. We don't have to believe in the plane taking off on the ground or know Bernoulli's principle, how a plane flies. We don't know all the instruments, what a pilot is going to do. You just enjoy the ride, and then you end up where you want to go. The laws of nature, countless numbers of laws of nature, creating huge, vast balls in the outer space, perfect coherence. Inner nature, outer nature, it's very much the same, exactly the same actually. Same source of pure consciousness, pure contentment, pure nature. So we allow the mind to beautifully, naturally go to where it's always wanting to go, letting this technique work for you, then you'll end up at a very quiet place because the mind's already looking for that. And along the way, the body's going to get much deeper rest than sleep has ever been. So the body's naturally, through deep rest, going to dissolve all the impediments, all the kinks and knots that we've been accumulating over a lifetime. Body doesn't want to have stress. The heart wants to be completely open and free and protected. The mind wants to be outside the box and infinitely resilient and creative. So we're allowing the mind and body to do what they've already naturally been designed to do, is to go back to that beautiful source of pure intelligence, pure consciousness, pure spirituality in your terms. So then it's a reset. You come back out feeling much more coherent, less stressed, more free, and more to give to the world. And a very strong, more protection from what's going on right now. Protects your immune system. And not just prevents it, but strengthens in a very, very profound way.
Yeah, because your cortisol is less. In fact, you're not really emitting any cortisol because you're living in that fourth consciousness. So
Right.
when you talk about allowing your mind to go places, are you saying that those thoughts, even though people are trying to resist them, have messages for us, and that we can allow them, we can follow them where they want us to go?
We're not looking for the messages in TM. That's different than other techniques also. Time to think thoughts through before and especially after meditation, but during meditation, we innocently let the technique work for us. And with that, it's going to be a reset. And it dissolves the stress naturally. And those thoughts that come up, we don't analyze them, we don't compare them with any other thoughts. That's very different than other techniques too. So again, the mind's designed to think how many thousands and thousands of thoughts every day. If you push the thoughts away, you're going against your own nature. It's like putting a dam up in the river. You're not letting the river flow freely anymore. Back to your question, there's countless numbers of indications in nature that it's effortless. So we want to simulate and go back to the pure nature of us. We effortlessly, with the right technique, which TM is, to allow the mind to go to that beautiful quiet place effortlessly. It's a novel idea because we're just trained, genetically transferred. We have to study hard and work hard and make things happen and control everything. Out in the world, yes, we do. If you don't do anything, there's no return on investment. Very, very clear, obviously. But with this technique, it's just the opposite. During meditation, we're allowing the nature to do the work for us.
I remember
Nature, body resetting themselves.
I remember when you were teaching me TM, and my personality is that I want to make sure that I get it right. And I'm sure I was asking a lot of questions about, well, how should I sit and how should I do this and how often should I repeat my mantra and what exactly does this mean? Is there a formula? And I remember you said, you can't get this wrong. And I thought, oh, I can't get this wrong. It's that simple. And released all tension for me. And I was able to dive into my practice in a way that I wasn't able to before because I was so worried about getting it wrong. So would you stand behind that still? And do you have to?
Absolutely. When you worry, you try, you push, you stop, you resist, and that's what stress does.
Yeah.
It's accumulating even more stress. We're just going the opposite direction. Again, letting the technique work for you. You have to believe in it. There's no belief system. There's no lifestyle change. You just meditate 15, 20 minutes. Ideally, 20 minutes is the anatomical correct time. And that's going to reset itself very profoundly, very gracefully without you having to do the work. Because we have how many hundreds of billion neurons in our brain designed to think all this many, many, many thousands of thoughts every day, or estimated 100 trillion nerve receptor cells. They say possibly creating 500 billion bits of information every second, whatever they come up with, astronomical numbers. That just happens effortlessly. Nature is effortless. So we want to get back to the effortless essence of you. Let this technique work for you, but it has to have the right technique to do it. That's what's been very professionally trained and transferred for many thousands of years. So TM is a very specific technique. It's not like you just close your eyes and just let your mind drift and wander, because it's not allowing the mind to transcend, which means to go beyond. How we got the term transcendental meditation. Meditation in the dictionary literally means to think deeply, and transcendental means to go beyond. So we're going beyond all the finest levels of, well, the superficial level of thinking, not trying to push our thoughts away. We just transcend and go beyond it. Go beyond all the layers of the thinking process and find the simplest form of awareness, tap in the source of your pure consciousness, pure awareness. And then when you come back out, you have the whole ocean of your mind to come back out, more expanded, more free, more clear. And everything we do in life, a thought precedes that. So it's to our benefit to have a less stressed mind. Thoughts are very clear, and the emotions are much more open and protected, and the body feels so much better. And that's why the hundreds of scientific studies show on TM very profoundly the effects of, again, balancing out high blood pressure. The cortisol levels, like you said, lowers that. Lactic acid, another indication of stress. Glucocorticoids, very extreme stressful chemical. That's a fight or flight response to post-traumatic stress chemical. When the mind is so intensely stressed, the memories are so gripping, this horrible trauma, the mind keeps reliving it over and over and over again. There's something called the amygdala deep within the brain.
Yes.
It's usually the size of an almond in normal, everyday, okay life. And when you're under attack, and you don't have to be just warriors or veterans coming back from war, I mean, somebody cutting you off on some freeway, you have to act instantly. This amygdala shoots up, increases about the size of a walnut and huge. And then this flap opens up. And glucocorticoids, it's like adrenaline times 100, floods the system to instantly protect yourself. It's like hypertension. It's to save your nervous system. But unfortunately, in extreme stress of cases of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that trauma just never leaves because it's still in the mind, the body is still under attack, that flap still is open, and you're under attack within your own biochemical activity. Now what we find with TM is that the more we meditate, the mind's settling down very gracefully and effortlessly. The prefrontal cortex becomes more coherent and the body becomes much deeper rest and sleep, that little flap shuts down. Amygdala starts to decrease back to normal size of an almond without even thinking about it. Now the endorphins, the serotonin, the dopamine start to flood the system. It's like an internal shower every time we sit to meditate with TM. And he's just so much more relieved because all the other stress chemicals or work manufacturing, creating, now it's reversed, all the very pleasant chemicals. And that's very enlightening just to have that flowing through your system.
That is so interesting, and it makes so much sense. When when you learn about trauma and you learn about the brain and how it reacts, a lot of times I'll give a visual where you have your limbic system, you have your amygdala, and then you have your prefrontal cortex on top. But when you experience trauma and then you relive that trauma, then this isn't operating anymore. Your prefrontal cortex isn't operating anymore, and you're operating from this fight or flight.
Exactly right.
About TM, and then you talk about how all those alpha 1 waves are being emitted. It makes so much sense now that this is being activated more, and then continue to activate throughout your day.
Yep. Pure nature makes complete sense. Stress doesn't. It's all, and like attracts like. With more stress every day, you're taking on more stress. What's really nice is a prevention from more stress, because every day you feel much lighter and clearer, and the world is a much more beautiful place, because the world is as we are. Then the world responds to that. I always like to think of nature as like a mirror. Whatever we put into it, it's going to rebound. It's going to respond to whatever you put into it. So it's our responsibility to have a very clear thinking mind, the heart's more open and free from as much stress as we can. And the body's much more free and lighter and clear, and the endorphins and serotonin are flooding the system. Now everything that we put into the world is going to respond. Adversely, if you concentrate and focus and try to force and push and stop, then nature is going to unfortunately come back with you in that same way that you just created that. Frustration, forcing, pushing, stopping. And then it's like this tailspin. It just doesn't release that, where this just transcends effortlessly. Mind wants to be free, let it free. Body follows the mind.
How much can you talk about the technique? What can you explain about it?
Well, again, it's very ancient. It's not a new age experimental thing, thousands of years old. So same way people learn today, it's been taught for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
And science backs that up too. The technique, again, is practice 15, 20 minutes twice a day. 20 minutes is ideal. Once in the morning, once in the afternoon. There's no religion to TM. It comes from India, but it's not anything to do with Hinduism or Buddhism. It strengthens whatever your religion, whatever belief system you are already naturally thinking or feeling, because it opens up even more to your appreciation of that. No belief system, you could be the most skeptical person on the planet, and it'll still work every time, because it's organic. It's the nature of the mind that wants to be free and expand. The body wants to be free, and the heart wants to be open and protected. So we're just allowing that to all happen for us. It's already naturally built in our system at the source of pure consciousness or pure spirituality. So we don't have to try, don't have to force all the things that I mentioned before. It's very different than other techniques. So TM is very, very profound because it's in simplicity. The finest level of nature is pure simplicity. All these hundreds of trillion nerve receptor cells doing their magic every millisecond. And it's pure simplicity. We don't have to make that happen. I always like to think, how do people survive throughout the nighttime without us forcing, making life continue, without us controlling it? It's an autonomic nervous system. There's nothing easier than to just fall into sleep and dreaming and going through waking state, and continues like that. So it's just the opposite. If we try and force and push, then it shuts everything down. So TM, again, is very unique with that. The mind, neuroplasticity of the mind, and that's with stress, it builds up and accumulates. When you dissolve the stress, the nature of the mind naturally wants to expand. So this technique actually helps with that too. So not to get too detailed into it, because that's what the course is itself. It's a 4-day course where you come in and you're learning the technique. At first, an introductory talk, and you can go to tm.org, short for Transcendental Meditation, tm.org. And there'll be a section, find location, the nearest TM center you can find. And there's hundreds in the United States and thousands around the world. And then you go to an introductory talk, takes about an hour to explain everything, or and more there'll be more online that we're coming out with more because, you know, the social distancing thing in their centers. And then if people would like to learn, then it's a 4-day course where you come in. The first day is instruction, very simple, very beautiful. I will never forget the first time I learned TM. Is like my brothers, my sister all told me, you've got to do this just from the beginning. And then the next 3 days, it's more based on what you're experiencing as to more knowledge and explain your experiences and answer all of your questions. So there's 2 parts of anything in life, knowledge and experience. So you have the experience first, and then we give the knowledge pertaining to that. So it's a genuine experience. We don't tell people how to make it happen or force it happen, to force what you're expecting to experience is, because it's not a genuine experience. This is very genuine based on what you're experiencing. Then we refine that, your technique, answer your questions, and give more knowledge. So it's a 4-day course after the introductory talk, and beautiful follow-up programs for the rest of your life. Tune-ups, group meditations or check-ins, you can say, refresher courses, and guest speakers all over the world. There's very, very profound knowledge based on what you're experiencing. So the actual technique is what we teach when we give that 4-day course. But I can say it's easy, it's effortless, and it's very enjoyable.
I know that you're teaching, or you have taught a lot of veterans. You've been teaching in Beverly Hills, so probably a lot of celebrities as well. And you've had your own experiences because you said, what did you say, 46 years?
Yes.
So do you have stories that will stay with you forever? I'm sure you have many, but what are some really profound experiences that you've had?
Mainly with the veterans. They're coming on in various suicides. There's a very unfortunate high percentage. Like last I heard, 22 suicides every day in our country from veterans taking their lives with a post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's just not going away. So their buddies tell them, you got to come in, you got to do this, it'll save your lives. And they have no idea what TM is or what meditation is, and what it will do. They just want to, they're taking one day at a time. They'll try anything. So they come in. They're the easiest people I've ever taught, which is very ironic because they're, safe to say, some of the most stressed people on the planet. They accumulate horrible trauma and memories. But 49 out of 50 of all the veterans that I've ever taught tap in very gracefully, very easily, right from the first sitting. You would think it'd be the opposite. You have to go through all those layers of stress and trauma. But and it dawned on me that the reason why that is, I think, is just because they're designed to listen to instructions. We give a technique and the right way to use the technique. Those two are hand in hand. If people don't listen to you, you can give all the right explanations, all the right techniques, but it won't work because they're not listening. They're not going with the actual technique. So people can walk in having no idea what TM is, meditation, what it is, and it'll work every time if they simply listen to instructions, or high percentage of time. So that's been my experience with veterans, and the most heartwarming thing to watch, these people coming in, literally hanging on by a thread, some of them. And at the end, really big, massive warriors. You know, I'm small, and these guys would just give me the biggest hug, and they'd say, dude, you have no idea, you just saved my life. And it's just tears. So that's the most memorable that I've ever taught with veterans. But people of all walks of life, a lot of professional people in any area of life. If there's stress there, then stress. Even the highest professional, very brilliant people, it's like after a while, stress shuts down. You know, it's a horrible statistic what builds up with stress. #1 killer in our world. This helps to dissolve the stress very easily, gracefully, humanely, and then you come back out feeling better every day for the rest of your life. It's been my experience, and that's why I love paying it forward, because I watch these extreme cases, and it's beautiful results for most cases.
You shared a story with me one time of when you were in a car accident and some of the responses of the individuals in the hospital when you started to meditate.
Oh, with my experience, it was actually a plane crash.
Oh, a plane crash.
Yeah, I was in a plane crash, yeah. And it hit a wind shear on takeoff. It was devastating, but rebounded very, very well. Doctors were very amazed. So just not my personal experience, but a lot of other people, extreme, devastating accidents would come out of nowhere, and just watch the resiliency of the nervous system to heal itself.
Mm.
Biochemically, this everything to do with our nervous system starts to heal. And simply through very, very deep, profound rest. The body is designed to dissolve what's not supposed to be there through rest. The brain wants to be very coherent, so the mind and body are reconnecting. So yeah, that was a very, very life-threatening thing for me, and I just rebounded very quickly. And these doctors said that it would take me pretty much my whole life. They would just to be in pain. They would give me all the pain meds I would ever need for the rest of my life, and it took many surgeries and very devastating thing. And very quickly, about a year and a half later, I was completely off all the meds, and which thank God for modern medicine and all that they do, because it's pretty miraculous what modern medicine does. But the real healer is inside us. When we tap into beyond the DNA molecule, then
Yeah.
everything starts to reboot. So that I found very quickly that I rebounded, and there's no pain. It feels great all the time. I got rods and plates and bolts in my body, and there's no pain. I feel better every day. So I love paying this forward. When people come in for an introductory talk and they say, oh, I have all this chronic pain and they're never going to go away. Some could be chronic, absolutely, but it could be very, very temporary also.
Mm.
We give the technique to go beyond that pain. Speaking from experience, this is devastating. It shatters so many bones in my body and whole devastating thing. And just rebooted. Now it's more beautiful every day. And it doesn't stop. It keeps getting better literally every day. It never hits the wall. Nature doesn't stop. There's an old saying, you never step in the same river twice. You put your foot in a river, pull it back another minute, it seems to be the same river, the water's downstream. Nature's constantly flowing, evolving, more and more and more contentment, more coherence, better health. So this is a very, very timely thing. We're having this podcast summer because it's a very devastating time for the world, as we know. And this could not just help to dissolve the fears and all the things that are going to the chaos in the world, to become more coherent within your nervous system, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And it also builds up the immune system very strongly. And when the immune system is strong, they can pretty much fight off whatever is impending harm or damage. It's like an invisible armor of protection from the outside. All the good penetrates through and enters our nervous system that nourishes you, and all the damaging, draining energies just starts to bounce off.
Mm.
So it's very large, a lot of scientific studies shown on that also.
So talk about epigenetics for a moment, because there's been a lot of evidence about epigenetics and meditation and emotion behind that. So what I think I hear you saying is that not only does it make our immune system stronger because it's helping to alleviate that cortisol or prevent the cortisol from happening in our brains and bodies, and we have all this coherence, and we're always supposed to be going toward ease and enlightenment, and things are getting better. But there's also part of our genetic makeup that is being changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Science hasn't come to this point, but that I know of, but to the genes, we all are given what we have through our ancestors, of course, the family lineage, and through the genes that make up our nervous system, very, very unique from all the other, 7.7 billion people on the planet. But whatever is masking those genes, we all have naturally gifted, abilities, and some trade-offs sometimes. But if over time those abilities are masked over, what we have genetically transferred or inherited, then if there's something slowing that down through stress, this can open that up. Mm-hmm. And if there's one channel or a few channels are blocked for whatever reason, then it can open up to many others. I've taught also, so back to your question about some beautiful, beautiful results. I was teaching this one young man, 17 years old, is ADHD, very severe ADHD, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, bipolar, and autistic. And very confused. His mother learned a long time ago. TM thought, well, maybe this could help, because school was devastating because he couldn't appreciate the teachers and they couldn't understand him, and had a hard time with life. So much chaos was going on in his nervous system. So I spoke with him for quite a long time. And finally, he understood enough that he wanted to try to learn TM. So next day, I taught him TM and took a lot of time with him, gave him the technique. And then there's 3 days follow-up. And every day you could see like the clouds lifting. His mind was more coherent. He felt a little bit better within his own skin and just naturally felt better about the world, because the world is as we are. How we're feeling is how we see the world. And then at the end of the 4th day, he's speaking very lucid descriptions, sentences, and very, very beautiful, harmonious feelings with himself, coherence, and very clear young man in just 4 days. So then there's a typical 10 days to 2 weeks later, we come back and see how they're doing and fine tune everything, answer questions. So I went to their home and I checked all of their meditations and explained more about it and answered their questions. And this is it's very, very emotional when I listen to this, because so many people, when their emotions are shut down, they just don't have so much to give, or it's not so empathic or compassionate with the world. So 2 weeks later, I went back and was tuning up this young man's meditation. And as I was leaving, he was asking, Denny, can I just meditate like all the time? And I said, well, it's not so healthy, because if you like eat all the time, it's not really good for your body. So you eat a couple of times a day, and it's very healthy for you. He says, yeah, I know, but I just want to help the world. So from like 2 weeks of being shut down to being so open that he wanted to help the whole world, it was very, very heartwarming. And so that's what this does. It opens up the compassion, the heart, and less stress, more to give. In extreme cases, a lot of very famous people, very honored, and everybody I teach, this young man was probably the most heartwarming that I've ever taught, just to watch that happen. Now he's gotten very successful in so many different areas of life, because this opens up not just left hemisphere of the brain, but the right artistic side, the heart and the mind start to blend, and we're supporting each other. The body feels so much lighter because it has a lot less stress. So it all works as like an integrated system. Everything starts to line up. And it all comes from, again, that prefrontal cortex just in the forehead. And everything becomes more coherent there. Everything feeds off of that. One simple little mental technique, effortless mentally, sitting 15, 20 minutes twice a day, and let the technique work for it. And everything starts to reboot and become more harmonious, more content, and stronger and healthier, more protection from the outside world is going on right now.
Denny, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. I feel inspired. I feel enlightened. I feel ease. And there are so many things that you said that I'm going to listen to all over again. One of them that will stick with me is that we see the world as we are.
It's very real.
As we are.
Very real.
So beautiful.
Yeah, and it keeps getting better world. Even if it's the world has a lot of challenges right now, the world, inner world, it can start to appreciate the infinite layers of beauty in nature.
Yes.
And that helps the world in a very large, very powerful way. We have a lot of sociological, scientific studies done on what this has an effect on very large cities, and crime rate reduction, and hospital accident rates reduced, and overall economy starts to increase. So we've seen it very specific ways in every field of life. So I just love what I do. I do it every day, 7 days a week. I'm very passionate about this. And I was greatly honored to teach you. Thank you so much for that, Summer, and your family too.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you. It was so beautiful. Thank you. And
as always, anything I can do for you with your TM, let me know. Very, very happy, because it's a follow-up for the rest of your life.
I would love that. Yes, yeah. Let's do it. And I want you to teach my children.
I would love to, yes.
I would love that. I mean, we'll just come down to LA and we'll stay and we'll just do TM.
That'd be great. Yeah. More time with you is better. Absolutely. Very happy.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. With all my heart. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you. Take care.
Beautiful night, Denny.
You too.
Okay.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.